Rejected from 30 jobs, rose from humble beginnings before becoming one of the richest people in the world, Jack Ma's story of grass to grace is one that has inspired and continues to inspire people from across different generations and cultures. Never miss an upload by subscribing and hitting that bell notification right now. Here are 10 things you didn't know about Jack Ma that we think you should know. Number 10. He first started as an English teacher. Did you know that the richest Chinese citizen first started as an English teacher? Yes, he did, and he grew from there. The economy of China at that time was not as big as it is today, and getting a good job required a high level of expertise, good fortune, and social connection, all of which Jack did not have. He applied for 30 jobs and was rejected at all of them for one reason or the other before eventually landing a job as an English teacher. That also was a kind of miracle because English is not spoken in China. His first job was to teach English, and he did it to the best of his ability. Number 9. His first salary fell between $12 to $15 a month. His first job was at a university, and guess how much he was paid? His pay was between 100 to 120 renminbi monthly, which was equivalent to $12 or $15 as per the prevailing exchange rate of the time. He was also the only teacher in the institution to be assigned as many as 500 students, and he taught there for 5 years before moving on to other things. Number 8. He learned English as a tourist guide. Did you know that Jack Ma was a tourist guide for 8 years? He sure was, and he guided tourists who came visiting for close to a decade. At the tender age of 12, he started this job and used the opportunity to learn the English language for free. According to Ma, when he took tourists on tour, he regularly conversed with them and did so for 8 years. During this period, he sharpened his English-speaking skills to the point where he was able to hold a conversation using good vocabulary. Number 7. In 1995, he was almost killed by an American businessman. In the year 1995, he was almost killed in the line of duty. What really happened? At the time, Jack was working with a Chinese firm and he was sent on a mission to the US to recover the money owed by an American businessman. What was supposed to be an uneventful business trip almost turned fatal. Rather than do the honorable thing by paying up, the businessman threatened to shoot Jack dead. That was not the only thing he did. He went further than that. He locked Ma in his house for 2 long days. Suffice to say that the man was convinced and let Jack go in the hope of starting a fruitful business venture with him in the nearest future. Number 6. His first foray into the internet world was by building websites for Chinese companies. His lack of knowledge about the internet did not sway him. Rather, he used it as a source of motivation. During that time, the internet was relatively new in China, and most Chinese businesses had not connected to the World Wide Web. He saw an opportunity to exploit, and he took hold of it. He started by building business websites for Chinese companies. He recalls the day he first got connected to the internet. In his words, he said, "I invited friends and TV people over to my house, and on a very slow dial-up connection, we waited for 3.5 hours, and on a very slow dial-up connection and got half a page. We drank, watched TV, and played cards, waiting. But I was so proud, I proved to my guests that the internet existed." His website development business went on to be successful, and he was one of the first Chinese citizens to open the country up to the rest of the world via the web. Number 5. The 3 keys behind his success. We are sure that you'll assume that Jack became rich by having the brain of an Einstein or by leveraging on his connections with the government, right? Far from it. Jack Ma was not the most intelligent person on his street, neither was he a close associate of top-ranking members of the Chinese Communist Party. He didn't have any top social connections, but he attributed his success to 3 major reasons. We had no money, we had no technology, and we had no plan. Every dollar we used carefully. While this logic may sound off, it points to one key point: that prudent financial management is one of the hallmarks of great businesses and businessmen. Despite not having any technical skills to boast of and very little funds, Jack and his team were still able to pull it off with proper planning and prudent financial management. This is one big lesson for current and aspiring business managers. Number 4. His first capital raise for Alibaba was $60,000. Today, Alibaba is worth roughly $400 billion, but this was not always the case. After launching Alibaba, and with the company's prospect looking bright, he decided to raise further capital to expand the business. How did he do this? In 1999, he gathered 18 people in his apartment and communicated his plans and vision for the company in 2 hours. At the end of the day, everybody gave what they had, and the total investment amount raised was $60,000. 6 months after his fundraising meeting, Alibaba was on to the big time. This time, they were able to raise a second round of funding provided by Goldman Sachs investors. Number 3. Why he chose the name Alibaba. The reason behind his decision was influenced by his vision to take the company global. He knew that he could not use a Chinese name, as that will be difficult for the majority of the world's population to pronounce and to spell. He needed a name everyone could pronounce. So he went for Alibaba, because it was easy to spell and people all over the world associated the name with the words "Open Sesame," which was the command the Alibaba character used to open the treasure doors in the book 1001 Nights. The name eventually became widely accepted and went viral. Today, Alibaba is a name more associated with his e-commerce store more than a book character. Number 2. He is the first mainland Chinese entrepreneur to appear on Forbes. There have been Chinese businessmen on the cover of Forbes in the past. However, before the appearance of Ma on Forbes' cover, no businessman or woman from mainland China had ever done so. We have had business people from Hong Kong and Chinese Americans appear on Forbes, but Ma broke the ceiling for indigenous Chinese entrepreneurs by virtue of his business success. Ever since then, more than a few other mainland Chinese businessmen have found their way onto the covers of Forbes magazine. Number 1. An interesting conversation with his wife. We conclude this episode on a lighter note by detailing a conversation Jack Ma had with his wife, Zhang Ying. His wife was one of the founding members of Alibaba, and in a conversation that took place a few years after the company was launched, Jack gave a funny reply to his wife's questions. Zhang Ying asked her husband how much the company had earned. In response, Jack raised one finger. 10 million yuan? His wife asked. Ma replied with a no. 100 million yuan? He yet again replied with a no. 1 million yuan? She asked in confusion, and he replied by saying a day. Suffice to say that at the time, Alibaba was already worth a company value of hundreds of millions of dollars, but having come from humble beginnings, Jack saw the value of life in all that he did without losing his sense of humor in the process. There you have it, guys. 10 things you didn't know about the fascinating life of China's richest businessman. Now that you do, we hope this video inspires you to strive for greatness just like Jack did. With a dream, a plan, and a strong work ethic, you too can blaze the trail to become one of the most successful people in your generation. We hope that you do. Until next time, cheers!